They say happiness can be described as a mathematical equation. Experience minus expectations. I'll give you an example of that. Christmas season. Everyone has a Hallmark version of Christmas in their head. Family will get together and enjoy a nice meal and have a great time. But quite often you'll have that loud uncle that says something inappropriate.
Mary, traffic was awful.
3 hours.
Whoa, you gained weight.
An aunt that's causing problems with the rest of the family. It's not quite what you had in mind. Your expectations were here. Your experience was here. That gap in the middle, that's unhappiness. I think of that in the context of our Prime Minister Mark Carney, someone who set the expectations for himself very, very high.
With your charm and debonair wit, yet strong financial backbone, that you offer yourself have you offered yourself as leader?
I just started thinking about it when you started.
If there's not a crisis, you wouldn't be seeing me. I am most useful. I'm honest. I'm most useful in crisis. I'm not that good in peacetime.
But what we're experiencing, what he's delivered, is something completely different. From his very first press conference, about 90 minutes after he told Canadians that he was running to be Prime Minister, he said that he had resigned all his board positions.
Even as a candidate, what are you doing?
Well, I just told you. I literally just told you. I have resigned all my positions. I resigned all my positions. Full stop.
We found out the very next day from the National Post that this wasn't true. During the campaign, he was stomping around saying, elbows up, we're going to fight Donald Trump everywhere. And we're going to tariff for tariff with Donald Trump. Not only did he drop all the tariffs during the campaign and not tell anybody, but then just a couple of weeks ago, when a reporter asked him about this, he said, who cares?
Next question.
Who cares? I mean, it's a detail. It's a detail. I spoke to him. I'll speak to him again when it matters.
Expectations here, experience here. And this goes on and on and on. But I think the most egregious example of this is Mark Carney's record when it comes to environmental stewardship. Millions of Canadians voted for this guy because they believe he was an environmental champion. He trotted around the world promoting green energy projects. He was an advisor to Prime Minister Trudeau. It wouldn't have been unusual a few years ago to see this guy on Bloomberg or BNN talking about green projects and how Brookfield was there to save the day, where all he talked about was green energy and how we had to get to net zero.
Our ultimate objectives, which is to get to net zero, we do not just have a cap on emissions, but those emissions are brought effectively to zero.
In terms of, we have both far too many fossil fuels in the world. We're going to have enormous stranded assets, half of gas, 3/4 of coal, etc. Maybe up as much as half of oil reserves, proven reserves, need to stay in the ground if we're going to get to where we are.
That's expectations being set through the roof, and Canadians believed them, and they voted for him. So those were the expectations. Now let me introduce the reality. The Amazon rainforest. The lungs of the planet. The biodiversity here is incredible. It's home to more plant species and more animal species than any other place on Earth. I'm not David Attenborough, and I can't do it justice, but anyone should go and watch Planet Earth to see the majesty of the rainforest and how important it is to our planet. We've been fighting deforestation for decades, trying to save species from extinction. It's probably not a good idea that we cut it down. When people see the clear cutting of the Amazon rainforest, they know in their heart that this is something that's wrong. But then, along came Brookfield. This is a 2022 report by Global Witness called Slash and Sell that details the destruction of the rainforest and abuses of Indigenous people by Brookfield, featuring this guy, Mark Carney. I want to be very clear. These are very serious allegations. They include human rights abuses, accusations of slavery, deforestation of the rainforest. I'm reporting what I found from Global Witness. I'm going to put a link below so you can read it for yourself. I'm just going to read from the top line of the summary of findings. A Canadian asset manager, part run by green finance champion Mark Carney, cleared thousands of football fields worth of tropical forest in Brazil. An estimated 9,000 hectares of deforestation, the legality of which could not be proven by Brookfield Asset Management, took place on 8 farms owned and managed by Brookfield's soybean farming empire. Brookfield signed up to the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, GFANZ, in April of 2021. The alliance commits its signatories to taking immediate action to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. Yet, deforestation on Brookfield's farms released an estimated 600,000 tons of CO2 in the 9 years up to June 21, destroying parts of a crucial carbon sink and biodiversity hotspot. And so this guy was trotting around the world with his elbows up, telling everyone that they need to reach net zero by 2050. They have to drive an electric vehicle, that you have to suffer to save the environment. All the while, this guy and Brookfield, Mark Carney and Brookfield, are leveling the rainforest. Brookfield's assets in Brazil are worth tens of billions of dollars. For anything from infrastructure to energy, gas pipelines, hydroelectric, nuclear plants, shopping malls. But it actually gets a little bit complicated. With companies, shell companies, holding companies, nothing's very clear. Except when it comes to the destruction of the rainforest, which was so obvious that you can see it from space. From the air, green tufts of soybean form dark geometrical shapes in otherwise bald patches of tropical rainforest savanna. The boundaries between forest and clear land on Brookfield farms are so straight that they could only be human-made. Satellite imagery confirms the destruction of the rainforest that is unmistakable. And this is all happening at the same time when Mark Carney wrote to members of GFANZ, urging them to stop financing deforestation, warning the world will not reach net zero by 2050 unless we halt and reverse deforestation within a decade. This is probably the most damning example of experience versus expectations that I have ever seen. And you'd think this couldn't get any worse. And then you read the slave labor findings. I know it makes for a less interesting video, but on this, I'm going to read straight from the report. Under the heading, Slave Labor Concerns, police found 42 farm workers living in slave-like conditions inside a farm in 2014, 28 of whom were housed in a 70-meter square house with no toilets or showers, according to court papers from November 21 and local newspaper reports. Brookfield was fined $800,000 for this offense, a court ruling that was upheld in December of 2021. And Mark Carney was the vice chair of Brookfield when this court ruling came down. I don't even know what to say. Can you imagine for 1 second if Pierre Poilievre, or a company that he was connected to, had these kind of accusations against him? The legacy media would have lit their hair on fire.
Yep. So, I mean, we have basically a liberal heckler who's snuck in here today. Thank you very much. I'm being heckled here by. Thank you very much for your congratulation. Thank you very much for your questions.
Millions of people voted for Mark Carney because they thought he was a champion for the environment, for green energy. This could not be further from the truth. Why weren't we told about this during the election? Thousands and thousands of NDP voters switched to the Liberals in the last election, thinking that Mark Carney was an environmental champion, that he had their best interests at heart. How are they learning about this for the first time right now? Now, I'm not saying that Mark Carney had slaves, but Mark Carney was the vice chair of Brookfield when a Brookfield-controlled company paid $800,000 to the Brazilian government as a fine for slave labor-related offenses. And can you imagine if the situation was reversed and it was Pierre Poilievre? What would the media do? This situation is so absurd that I can't believe that I'm having to clarify that Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, had or didn't have slaves. There are court documents and satellite images to back up all of these claims. Let's bring this back to happiness. Expectations minus experience. If your kid came to you and said, I want a red bike for Christmas, and you got him socks, I'm pretty sure he'd be disappointed. I think the same thing's true with Mark Carney. Millions of people voted for Mark Carney because they were told he was a green champion. And now they're learning that he participated in the deforestation of the rainforest. They were told he was one thing. Now he's proving to be something else. I think Canadians are going to be pretty upset.